Hey, welcome back everybody. Welcome to another episode of Lessons on Learning. These are quick fire videos, usually recorded straight off the cuff, just when I think of something to record that help us understand what it takes to learn, what's involved in learning, and how can we use that information to create a better learning experience for our own learners when we're doing our own classes. Again, if you're enjoying these videos, we usually keep them under about 15 minutes, but if you are enjoying them, make sure that you give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, that would be really good, and of course tell your friends. So look, right at the beginning of the class, we get so wrapped up, so concerned in delivering our content and getting through our agenda that we forget one of the most important parts of getting learners to learn, and that is actually teaching them how to learn, giving them permission to learn, letting them know how they learn and what's going to happen during that process. Now, we can spend a lot more than 15 minutes covering this topic, but here's one aspect of it that I would like to be able to share with you that hopefully you can use in your own classes as well. I'm going to switch to an iPad to show you. Look, it's important to remember that learners come to us for a variety of reasons, usually because they've got some kind of problem for which they're looking for some kind of progress with. And what they're looking to get really are some results. And they're looking to you and the results that they've seen you get, or the results that they've seen you talk about, and they're wanting to know, how can I get those same results? And what's really important with our learners to establish first and foremost is to ask them, where do those results come from? The results that they are currently getting now, where do those results come from? And they're going to come up with a variety of things: tools, clients, models, products, all kinds of things. But ultimately, any result that we get, any kind of result at all that we get, ultimately comes from what we do, from the things that we do. That result comes from our behaviors. So if a learner is getting a particular result when they're carrying out their work, it's going to come from some behavior that they're doing. And very often this behavior is repeated. It's usually well embedded. It's sometimes a behavior that's done on autopilot, and often our learner may not even be aware that they are exhibiting this behavior. It might have become a habit, and yet this habit has become so ingrained and so automatic that it consistently provides the same results all the time. Now, when we think about habits are very powerful. They're usually invisible, but more importantly, they're usually very comfortable. They feel safe, they feel comfortable. And the reason that they feel safe and comfortable is because, number one, we know how to do them really, really well. And number two, they provide very consistent results, and so we can be really confident that we can predict the outcome. When I do it like this will happen, and it happens so often. It happens time and time again, and it becomes so regular and so reliable that what can happen is this habit, this behavior, can actually become something more powerful. It can actually become a belief. In other words, this is the only way to do something. This is how I always do it. And that belief can even become a justification for the kind of results that we get. Well, it always turns out like that for me. I'm not very good at this, or I prefer it when I do that. And so it's this kind of cycle that we get into. We get used to these results because they're incredibly consistent and they're incredibly reliable. So these results actually set up this belief system. It must be true because it always happens. And so this belief system then drives this behavior forward. I always start here. I always do it like this because at least I know what I'm going to get. I know what kind of result I'm going to get. And so what we've got to remember with our client, with our learners, even ourselves really, we've got to get them to a point where they recognize that any result that they get, desirable or not desirable, is a direct result of the behaviors that we exhibit. And these behaviors can sometimes be deeply ingrained habits, and they're often driven by a belief system. Now, that means that if we try to change anything, if we try to change any habits, then we're going to come into conflict with this belief system. But the reality is this: if I want to change my results, what I'm going to have to look at doing first is changing my habits or my behaviors. And when I change my habits or behaviors, this belief system is going to kick in and it's going to say, no, this is not what we do. Go back to what you ordinarily do. And the main reason for that is more than just comfort. It's more than just simply being used to something. It's because of this. When we change our behaviors, when we change these habits, when we try something new, what usually happens to our result? So if a learner comes to you with an issue, with a problem, this is always happening to me, I want to change this, that, and the other, I want to get a better result, and you show them a different method, forget for a moment whether it's a better or worse, good or bad, you just show them a different method, one that you think is going to improve them. What's going to happen almost immediately? Well, a lot of people will say, well, as soon as I start doing it that way, my results will get better. But actually, that's not always the case. Because usually when we try to do something different, when we try to enact a different behavior or carry something out in a different way, rather than our results getting better, invariably, albeit temporarily, our results get worse. It looks a little bit like this. You know, we might have a particular skill, and this happens to us, it happens to our learners, it happens to everybody. We might have a particular skill, and the more we practice this skill and practice and perfect it, the better it gets. It kind of starts to go up, it gets better and better. But at some point, without more intervention, we form these habits, we form these routines, and at some point this skill is going to plateau. It's going to stay the same. And that's where we encounter some kind of problem, either boredom or lack of progress, or the rest of the world is moving on without us. Either way, we feel that we need to move forward, we need to make improvements, we need to progress. And so what we do is we go and we try and find some kind of instruction, whether it's self-taught or whether it's going to a class or whether it's seeking new information elsewhere. Either way, we try to change these routine behaviors. We try to do something else. And the minute that we do that, the minute that we try to create something else, do something else, our level suddenly plummets. And I want you to think about, let's imagine a juggler, for instance, in a circus. And that juggler juggles 3 balls. And for years and years and years, he's been juggling 3 balls. And he or she's been really successful with these 3 balls. But then they realize that the crowd's getting bored. They're getting bored. What's the next step? I want to juggle 4 balls. So they pick up 4 balls and toss them into the air. And what happens? Well, they don't just drop the 4th ball, they drop all the balls. So now all 4 are on the floor, not just the extra one that they picked up. And it's almost starting again. And it's at that point here where we're down here, where we kind of bottom out. And it's at this point here that's a real crux, because unless you prepare your learners for this, unless you prepare them for that point there, then what they may well do is think, oh my gosh, this isn't for me. This is even worse. It's worse than it was before. I'm going back to where I was. And they'll go back and not actually make any progress. So let them know before things get better, they are going to have to get worse. Before they can move from juggling 3 balls to juggling 4 balls, they're going to first of all have to drop all the balls. Is this making sense? But then, of course, with your coaching, your guidance, your kind of like help, and some practice and some time and some effort and some energy, what starts to happen is they start to build again. And they start to move up again and things start to get better. And suddenly we're not dropping the balls quite so often. Or maybe we're only dropping 2 balls. Then we're only dropping 1 ball. And before we know it, we've actually gone higher. And now we're juggling all 4 balls. We're better than we were before at whatever it is. And then, of course, the same thing happens again. We start to plateau and the cycle continues. But it's this point here that we have to be really mindful of and let our learners know, look, right now you might have a problem, you might be a little bored, so you're going to take some education, we're going to change some of your habits, we're going to change some of your behaviors, we're going to ask you to do something in a slightly different way. When you do, it's going to feel really uncomfortable and unusual, and you may get a slight decline in your results, which will reinforce this chaos that you're having over here. But stick with it, because even though to begin with it's going to feel like it's getting worse, stick with it, because with a bit of diligence, some practice, some application and some good teaching, it will start to get better again. And before you know it, you'll be back up where you were, better than before. Is this making sense, my friends? So it's really important, however you want to explain that, but explain that to your learners right at the very beginning, because unless you do, that happens to them, and what they're actually going to do is they're going to blame you, or they're going to blame the instruction, or they're going to blame something else. They're not going to recognize that that process is taking place, and in doing so, they're going to kind of sabotage themselves in that, really. Let them know it cuts down on an awful lot of chaos and an awful lot of frustration. When they start to get a bit kind of huffy puffy and frustrated, no, it's not going right, you can turn around and say, do you remember what we talked about? This is exactly where you should be. The fact that things are getting a little bit worse means that you're doing some really good, effective learning. Okay, look, I hope that helps, my friends. If it did, please drop a comment into the comment box. Make sure that you like this video, give me a little thumbs up, spread the word, and please subscribe as well. I'm always going to be dropping little videos like this as well, and or maybe tag a friend, or email a link to a friend. Just let more people know about it. It's free education, and I hope it helps. So listen, thanks very much for watching, and tune in again soon. Keep an eye out on the channel. We'll have some more coming soon. All right, take care, my friend. Bye-bye.